Good morning, everybody. My name is Bryan Wisda. I'm the creator of ADHD Lullaby. And I specifically wanted to record and upload this video to kind of tell the story behind the album because it's such a unique story. And as you understand the story, I think you'll understand the album. My oldest son, my wife and I's oldest son, his name is Kale, has ADHD. And a pretty good case of ADHD at that. Some years back, we made the decision to put him on a stimulant medication just to help him get through the day. It was a hard decision to make, but it was the right one for him. And the medication helps him quite a bit. He's a happy kid. He gets along well in school. He gets good grades. And everything seems to be fine. At night, though, one of the side effects of any stimulant medication, especially in kids with ADHD, is they have a very hard time falling asleep at night. And it's not the fault of the kid. It's just a side effect of the medication. Late in the day, the medication wears off. Your body kind of crashes a little bit, kind of like you would with a cup of coffee. You kind of have that crash after a cup of coffee. And when the crash ends, you get a little bit of a serotonin kick. Well, this prevents him from falling asleep in what we're going to call normal time frames. And what I mean by what a normal time frame is maybe 15, 20 minutes laying in bed, falling asleep. My youngest son, he lays down 3 minutes later, he's out. I mean, he's easy as can be. Kale, though, would take 2 to 3 hours every single night to fall asleep. And to make sure he went to bed, either my wife or I would have to sit in his room and make sure he didn't get up out of bed to use the restroom, he'd play with Legos or he'd have toys in his bed, and basically anything he could do to occupy his mind short of just staring at the ceiling because, well, that's boring. And it's a struggle. It really is. For parents with ADHD, they know that this is a struggle. I'm sure many and thousands, if not millions of parents have lived that reality just as we had. And it became, it's a stress on a marriage, and it's a stress for the kid too. They want to go to sleep. They know that you as a parent are frustrated with them. And again, it's not their fault. So that was kind of our life, if you will, for a lot of years. And we never really found that one thing that helped him. We tried weighted blankets. We've tried melatonin. And just about every other product under the sun. We'd get various music and albums and noise machines and wave makers and you name it, we tried it. Something unique happened to me in 2016. My current profession, I'm a deputy sheriff with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office in the Phoenix area. And in 2016, while working a DUI task force, I got shot in the line of duty. And that kind of laid me out for a few months. During my recovery, my wife said to me, "Hey, Bryan, I'm not going to let you just sit on the couch and play video games for however many months you're laid up." And she suggested I learn how to play the guitar. I thought, oh, that's cool. As a kid, I played some, instruments here and there and the drums, and, nothing ever really stuck. I thought, okay, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I went online and, for a couple $100 from Amazon, ordered actually the red guitar that's right behind me. It's been modified since, but, a couple $100 guitar and a little amp, and started watching YouTube videos and various things to learn to play the guitar. And after about 3 or 4 weeks of watching YouTube videos and trying to teach myself, with an app on the iPad and all kinds of stuff, I said, I'm learning stuff, but I'm not learning on a lesson plan. And so I found an instructor and I started taking lessons. During that process of learning guitar, some nights what I would do is I would go, when I was sitting in Cale's room trying to help him fall asleep, I would play the guitar for him. And sometimes I'd play things like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I mean, basic songs as a beginning student of the guitar would do. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Brahms Lullaby, old, simple, basic lullaby type songs. And, he liked them, but it never really helped him fall asleep. And one day, about a year and a half into learning the guitar, as I was getting better and better, one day I went in and I just said, hey, I'm going to just play you just some basic blues. Nothing fancy. And really, it wasn't the blues where you have a chord progression and all that. I would call it more just noodling around, just playing pentatonics and skipping strings and skipping notes and doing what I'm just going to call noodling around. No rhyme or reason to it. Certainly an element of randomness, if you will. And I noticed that he fell asleep. I'm like, oh, that's kind of strange. I mean, at first I thought it was a coincidence. The next night I go in and he asked me, he goes, hey, Dad, can you play the guitar again like you were the night before? I said, sure. So I did that, and I noticed he fell asleep again. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. To go from sitting in his room for an hour, 2-3 hours at night to, kind of noodling around on the guitar, if you will, and having him fall asleep fairly quickly. Perked my interest, obviously. So I started doing that with some frequency, every night, just going in and noodling around and asleep. And it was nice. It got my attention enough to call a friend of mine who is a mental health professional. And I called him up and I said, hey, tell me why my kid has fallen asleep when I play these random notes. And, what he suggested, and I subsequently did some research on, is he said, you're messing with his ability to process information when you play random notes. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, in music, we expect pattern, right? We expect very, very certain things to occur in the music. A chord progression, a verse, a bridge, a chorus, these things all happen in time. They happen in a basic pattern, if you will. And what he said was, when you play out of time and when you're playing random stuff, you're not allowing the brain to process and pick up on that pattern. And what it does is it keeps the brain from taking in additional information. So when you think about the ADHD brain, it takes in some information, it identifies the pattern, and then it quickly dismisses it. It's still hearing it, but it's moved on to the next thing. And by playing these random notes, essentially what we figured out was that we are preventing the mind from identifying that pattern and moving on to the next thing. And so that got me doing a lot of research, and I started reading, going online and reading scientific journals on sleep and how that functions. And I started playing around with it a little more and more and more. I said, well, wait a second. What would happen if I came along and I recorded a pattern, a simple chord progression, if you will, and then played these random notes over the top of it? And what I noticed with Cale is that it worked just a little bit better. And then I'm like, oh, this works. So I started reading more stuff, and I started integrating more concepts and ideas that sleep therapists and neuroscientists will use to help people relax and fall asleep. And what I ultimately came up with was a combination of existing concepts, and I merged them together. And I'm the first person to do that. And in doing that, I created a song called Cale's Lullaby, which was the first song that I ended up releasing as a single back in, I believe, November of 2018, maybe December 2018. And I released it worldwide after sending it off to friends of mine who are parents of other ADHD kids. And I said, hey, do me a favor, play this song for your kid tonight. Let me know how it works out. And after a couple of weeks, I got some feedback, and the vast majority of them said, hey, that actually really helps. And I said, well, that's good, perfect. And so I said, well, wait a second. I put together the basic framework of about 6 or 7 songs for Kale. And I said, all right, let's try playing him these 6 or 7 songs with all the science in it. And it was phenomenal. I mean, he was asleep in 10, 15 minutes. And it's a marketed improvement. And it wasn't just that he was asleep in 10 or 15 minutes. It was asleep that he was in 10 or 15 minutes night after night after night. And for the most part, you'd have an occasional flyer in there that he'd just be wired for some reason. Maybe he had some caffeine, or he had a late football game, or whatever the case may be. But it worked really well. And so I contacted some friends of mine in the music business, and I sought some input and some advice, and ultimately decided to record an entire album that, we released a single first, but, we recorded the album and released it worldwide. And so that's kind of the story of ADHD Lullaby. And, in releasing it worldwide, I never expected it to have the success that it did. I mean, this is not a product that I came along and created control focus groups, and I don't know all that stuff. But what I did was I started asking people, hey, send me your feedback. And almost everybody that listened to it that I asked for feedback from said, hey, this really works for my kid. When the album was released in February, it took off pretty quickly. And it got a lot of feedback. I mean, hundreds of comments back from parents. Oh my gosh, this works. It's the first thing that works consistently. And within about 2 weeks of being released, the album went to #1 in new releases for children's lullabies on Amazon, which is, kind of the indicator of the world anymore, is how well does it sell on Amazon. And it stayed as the #1 new release in children's lullabies for a full 90 days after its release, which is the most time you can be considered a new release. And it continues to sell very strongly on Amazon, ranking in the, very consistently in the top 100, top 50, top 25, and most recently it's hovered in the top 10 for children's lullabies for the last month or so. And as a parent, I continue to use this with Kale, and you'd think, he'd get sick of it after, gosh, we're going on a year now of him listening to this album. And he doesn't get sick of it. He loves it. He knows that it helps him fall asleep. He knows that it relieves the stress level that he feels from us. It allows my wife and I to do the things at night that we need to do, not only around the house, but as a couple. And I'm completely impressed by what has occurred. I never expected it to work as well as it has. I never expected so many people to embrace it. As I look at it today, in terms of what it's doing, it's streamed nightly by hundreds, and if not thousands of parents. I think on Spotify alone, I have about 10,000 people that are playing the album consistently every month. The numbers on iTunes are about the same. It continues to sell. Amazon sends orders for CDs every week, and they continue to sell out of those CD orders every single week. And it's been really, it's been cool to know that I'm helping other parents help their kids. And these kids with ADHD, they struggle enough. They don't need the stress of trying to fall asleep at night. Some of the nicest comments I've gotten back are from parents saying, oh my gosh, my kid falls asleep in 20 minutes. He stays asleep throughout the entire night, whereas before, the child would get up in the middle of the night or whatever the case may be. And they're noticing I never know how to use that word, but anyway, they're noticing phenomenal changes in behavior during the day because the child's getting more sleep. They're more well rested. They have more energy. They're just more naturally themselves, and they're not drained by not having enough sleep. You know, it does wonders for them. And this has been a really, really cool journey. About a week ago, I got an email from a gentleman by the name of Alex Vitoulis, if I'm saying his name right, who's the chart manager of Billboard, and sent me an email. And he said, hey, I want to give you a heads up that ADHD Lullaby is getting really, really close to charting on Billboard magazine. I was like, oh, that's pretty big stuff. You know, again, I never expected what has occurred to occur. But I'm really taken back by it, and I'm taken back by just how many parents the album is helping and how many kids the album is helping. And it's starting to stretch beyond just ADHD. I'm starting to get comments back from parents who have autistic kids. And I don't know much about autism, but the parents are reporting great results with autistic kids with other problems as well. Teachers are using it in the classroom to help toddlers focus. And it was never intended to help toddlers focus. It's intended to help kids who are between ages 6 and 13 with ADHD. And so it's really cool. And so a couple of the questions that I consistently get, and a couple that I'll address really quickly, are why is it intended for kids age 6 to 13? And the answer to that is I did some research into how your body assimilates to music when it hears it. And one of the things that we know about music is if you listen to music long enough, if the tempo is consistently the same, your heart rate will adjust to the music. You know, for instance, if you go to, I'm going to say a Deadmau5 concert, he consistently plays music at 120 beats a minute. And that's just almost every song he has is 120 beats a minute. I personally am a fan of Deadmau5. I love his music. And what we know is that if at the end of that concert, you take people's pulse towards the end of the concert, their heart rate's pretty much going to be 120 beats a minute. And, you know, you can do the same thing at a U2 concert, which consistently plays at about 100 beats a minute. If you listen to, I don't know, I'm going to say Enya. I don't know much about Enya. She's very talented. But let's say her music is at 60 beats a minute, and you listen to that music for a couple hours, your heart rate's going to go to about 60 beats a minute. And so one of the things we did with ADHD Lullaby is we said, well, wait, what's the heart rate of I said, what's the heart rate of Kale? Well, he's sleeping. And so I started taking his heart rate at night and found out what his sleeping heart rate is. But more importantly, I did some research and I said, well, wait, what's the average sleeping heart rate of other kids while they sleep at night? And in that age group, the average is about 76 beats a minute. So the album actually is stepping down the tempo over time. It starts high and it moves down low to right to 76 beats a minute. And it hovers right at about 76 beats a minute once it gets about halfway through the album. And the purpose of that is to kind of help the child just normally relax. You know, they're already up here. If your heart rate's going at 100 beats a minute and you put on music that's 60 beats a minute, you're not automatically going to go to 60 beats a minute. So my thought process there was, you know, start the album where I think the kid's starting and kind of help them move down into where their sleeping heart rate should be. So that's really why the album's intended for kids age 6 to 13. And the biggest question, the follow-up question I get is, you know, will it help adults? And the answer is, depends on your heart rate. I've had a lot of feedback from adults that say, hey, this really helps me. And other adults say, it doesn't help me at all. Well, it's not intended for you. I'm glad that it helps those that it does. But, you know, at the end of the day, this was meant for kids age 6 to 13. The other thing the album does is it incorporates some neuroscience with some very specific frequencies. And so embedded in the music, if you will, are some very, very specific frequencies that neuroscientists have used for decades to help people relax and fall asleep. And if you think about the music itself, I think of the music not necessarily as a sleep aid. I think of the music as a delivery tool for these frequencies. And so by having this rhythmic and non-rhythmic element that we have with the music, it acts as the delivery tool for the frequencies, because I'm preventing the brain from wandering, and in preventing the brain from wandering, they better absorb these underlying frequencies. And I'm not going to go into what all the frequencies are, because there's a patent pending on all this, and I don't want to give away the recipe until I've got some legal protections on it. So that's the way that works. And it does well. So for adults specifically, one thing I am doing is a couple releases I'm going to release a couple things here in the very near future. First, I'm going to release a 25-minute single, just a single song, 25 minutes long, that is designed to help an adult take a power nap. And it uses the same basic technology as I have with the ADHD album. The second release I'm going to do is a full-length album for adults with ADHD to help them fall asleep at night. So targeted more to an adult's average sleeping heart rate versus a 6 to 13-year-old. And so that adult version should help kids who are post-puberty through probably about 70 years old. And I need to do some more research on what average heart rates are. There's obviously a bigger disparity in heart rates for adults when they sleep than there is with kids. Most kids fit very well within, a standard, not kids. The majority of kids aren't obese, whereas I think the majority of adults, are overweight, myself included. And weight affects heart rates while you're awake, while you're asleep, etc. And so there's got to be I've got to do some research into that, and specifically how to target that. So that's what's going on. The album ADHD Lullaby is available worldwide. It's available. You can go to ADHDlullaby.com. It's available on Amazon. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, and just about every other streaming service there is worldwide. Deezer, Tidal. It's in Africa and the Middle East on Ngami. It's in Latin America on Claro Musica. It's in India on, I'm not 100% sure I'm saying it right, but Geo7. It's in Asia in various formats. It's in China on NetEase. It's in Japan, UK, Europe. You name it, it's on those streaming services. If for physical albums, if you want a physical album, they're sold worldwide by Amazon, CD Baby, and through my website. There's some other retailers that are starting to carry it. There's some physical retailers that are starting to carry it. And as it gains in popularity, I think you're going to see it pop up more and more. So that's the story of ADHD Lullaby. It all kind of circles back to just a dad, myself, who's trying to solve a problem for his kid and help his kid be more successful, happier, get better sleep, and also to help my wife and I get our evenings back. And had I not gotten injured and shot, I would have never started playing the guitar in the first place. And so, I hate to make the lemonade out of lemons reference, but that's a lot of what happened. So that said, that's the story of ADHD Lullaby. If you have any questions, please feel free to go to ADHDlullaby.com and send me an email, or you can go on to Facebook or Instagram and drop me a note. I respond to all messages, and I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to hearing your feedback, both good and bad. And to date, I've only had 4 people send me messages saying, hey, this did not help my kid, which is phenomenal. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parents have sent me messages saying, oh my gosh, this is the only thing that helps. and only 4 to date after, well, it's June 18th, 2019. So the album's been out since February. So what, 5 months? And I've only gotten 4 people tell me it doesn't work. I get the occasional message here and there from an adult saying, I didn't like the album. It didn't sound good to me. And the only thing I can respond, that's not it didn't work for my kid. That's you didn't like it and you didn't play it for your kid for whatever reason. I have run across that. And most of the time when I ask a follow-up question, that adult has actually had some musical training. And the reason why they're not liking it is because it has that rhythmic and non-rhythmic element, essentially randomness to the music, which drives a trained musician nuts. They listen to that and go, it's out of time. That note doesn't fit there. That's a non-diatonic note. Why are you doing that? And my answer to them is, this is not designed for you as an adult. This is designed for a kid with ADHD to help them fall asleep. And if you give your kid a chance to listen to it, who has sleep troubles and who has ADHD, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So that said, I'm going to wish everybody a great day. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your interest in ADHD Lullaby. Please spread the word about the album. I don't have Sony Music in my back pocket doing distribution and marketing, and the vast majority of why you're seeing this is because of me. So please share the story with another parent who you know has a kid with struggles with sleep. That's the predominant way that the word is getting out about this phenomenal album. Again, thank you. Have a great day.